The stars had always seemed endless, shining cold and distant in the void of space, but to the crew of the starship Erebus, the darkness between them and the nearest sun felt alive, almost watching. Captain Soren leaned over the ship's console, his eyes tracing the blinking lights of the sensors, searching for something he couldn't name. They were far beyond the usual patrol zones, in a sector marked as restricted by the Galactic Council, a place no ship had dared enter for decades. The crew whispered nervously in the corridors, their voices small against the hum of the engines. Lieutenant Mara kept glancing at the readings, her fingers tapping on the datapad. "Captain," she said, her voice low, "there's something. It's moving, but it doesn't show on the charts." Soren frowned, leaning closer, feeling the tension curled like smoke in the air. The sensors had picked up a faint energy signature, something alive, but unlike anything recorded before. They had crossed the threshold into human forbidden space, trespassing without realizing the full danger. Soren had warned them about curiosity, but now curiosity had a face, and it was staring back at them from the darkness. The air in the ship felt heavier, almost electric, as if the walls themselves remembered every human who had ever dared this far. Mara's voice trembled as she whispered, "It's huge, Captain, bigger than any ship we've seen." "Shh, quiet." Soren's hand hovered over the controls, knowing hesitation could mean death. "Show me," he said, and the main screen flickered to life. A shadow appeared in the void, enormous, and shaped like nothing natural, a relic of an intelligence older than humans. It hovered silently, its surface reflecting starlight in a way that seemed to look right through them. The crew gasped, but Soren held his breath, sensing the weight of history pressing down on them. No alarms had gone off, no warnings from the Council, yet the sense of danger was undeniable. Soren realized then that humans had never seen this, never fought this, never prepared for this. "This is wrong," Mara said, her voice shaking. "We weren't supposed to be here." Soren didn't answer, because inside, he already knew the truth. Humans might survive anything, adapt, fight, and even win. But this was different. This was something waiting for the right moment to strike. As they drifted closer, the sensors began to fail, lights flickering and warning bells silent. It was as if the thing knew how to hide, how to bend the rules of physics, how to erase itself from all instruments. The silence of the void grew louder, in their ears, every heartbeat pounding against it. The crew could feel the cold gaze of something ancient, judging, waiting for a mistake. Even the experienced Soren felt a chill crawl up his spine, a fear he had never known. Then, just as suddenly, the shadows shifted, moving faster than thought, sliding along the edges of their perception. Mara grabbed the console, eyes wide. It's learning, Captain. It's learning from us." Soren knew that danger was no longer hidden. It had noticed, and humans had always been unpredictable. The moment they understood the rules, the moment they acted, there was no going back. In that silence, in that darkness, Soren realized something terrifying but thrilling. Humans never repeated themselves, and whatever they had awakened would soon find out why. The Erebus drifted closer to the shadow, engines humming softly. The crew held their breath, hearts racing, knowing the first move could mean survival or total annihilation. The shadow moved with an intelligence that made the crew's skin crawl. It was not just a ship or a creature, it was something older, sharper, calculating. Captain Soren gripped the console tighter, feeling the ship tremble as though the void itself was alive. "This is no ordinary patrol sector," he muttered, eyes fixed on the main screen. "It's waiting for us to make a mistake." Lieutenant Mara studied the readings, but the instruments gave nothing consistent. "It's like it knows our thoughts," she said, voice trembling. "Every sensor we have. It ignores, it adapts." The crew exchanged nervous glances, each of them feeling the weight of history pressing on their shoulders. They had crossed the line into forbidden human space, and now the universe seemed to have noticed. The shadow shifted again, faster than any ship could move. Gliding past the limits of the Erebus sensors, it cast no light, no heat, but its presence was undeniable. A pressure in the air that pressed against their minds. Crew members whispered prayers, two gods they didn't believe in, while engineers tried frantically to recalibrate failing systems. Soren stood silent, realizing that panic would only make things worse. But fear was spreading like wildfire. Suddenly, a burst of static filled the comms. A voice or something pretending to be a voice echoed across the ship. "Why do you trespass?" Kith asked. each word slow, deliberate, impossible to place. Mara froze, fingers hovering over the console. It's talking to us. Soren swallowed hard, the hairs on his neck standing on end. Not talking. Mara. Testing. Learning. Judging. The crew knew humans had always survived impossible odds. Every species they had faced underestimated human adaptability, human unpredictability, and now, whatever this was had discovered that humans never repeated themselves. Every strategy, every move, every decision was different, spontaneous, and impossible to predict. Soren's mind raced, trying to find a pattern, a weakness, anything to give them an edge. The shadows seemed to anticipate his thoughts, sliding. In the void just out of reach, Mara tapped her console frantically. Data streaming in. It's analyzing us. Captain, it's trying to understand how we think. Soren nodded, realization dawning. Good. Let it try. Humans are full of surprises, and it won't like the next one. Then the ship shuddered violently. Lights flickering, alarms sounding. The shadow had made its first move, brushing against the hull like a predator testing its prey. The crew held onto consoles and rails as the ship spun slightly, engines straining to compensate. Mara's voice cut through the chaos. It's not attacking fully yet. It's seeing what we will do. Soren took a deep breath, heart pounding, mind sharp. Then we give it something it cannot calculate. He signaled the crew to prepare countermeasures, old tricks, unexpected moves. Every human instinct, every lesson learned from centuries of survival was now their shield. The Erebus lurched forward, deliberately unpredictable, engines roaring against the cold void. The shadow reacted instantly, moving faster, mirroring some motions, ignoring others. It was learning, adapting, but humans never repeated themselves, and that was its weakness. Soren felt a thrill mixed with dread, knowing the next few minutes could decide the fate of the ship. Every decision mattered. Every tiny action could trigger the end or a miraculous survival. As the Erebus danced in the darkness, twisting and dodging the shadow's movements, the crew realized something terrifying but true. They had awakened something ancient, but humans had the power of imagination, unpredictability, and courage, and for the first time, the shadow might meet a force it could not fully understand. The Erebus twisted through the darkness, its engines roaring like a heartbeat against the silence of space. Captain Soren's eyes burned red from staring at the main screen, tracking the shadow as it moved unpredictably. The crew was tense, muscles tight, minds racing faster than the ship itself. Every instinct told them fear could be deadly, but every human instinct also screamed that they could survive. Mara adjusted the sensors, rerouting power, trying to confuse the shadow. It's following our logic, Captain, she said. But if we change patterns, maybe we can trick it. Soren nodded, a grim smile forming. Humans never repeat themselves. Let's give it a surprise it won't forget. He tapped a sequence on the console, engines flaring briefly, sending the Erebus into a sudden spin. The shadow mirrored them at first, moving in perfect symmetry. But then it hesitated. Something about the sudden change confused it, its shadowed form flickering as if uncertain. Soren saw the moment and leaned closer. Now, Mara, now. Mara triggered a series of false signals, lights and energy readings, scattered like decoys across the void. The shadow hesitated again, its movements jerky, unnatural, learning too slowly for this human mind. Crew members held their breath, watching, as the massive unknown entity tried to calculate the unpredictable. Soren's strategy was simple, but deadly. Humans never repeated themselves, and every move was designed to break patterns. Every twist, every engine flare, every signal was new, and the shadow could not adapt fast enough. Then came the first real counterattack. Subtle but precise, the Erebus fired a pulse of energy into the void, not to destroy, but to create controlled chaos. The shadow recoiled slightly, more curious than harmed. But that small hesitation was enough. Soren whispered, "It's learning from us, but it's too slow to catch everything." Mara's fingers flew over the controls, launching multiple simulations of attacks that didn't exist, tricking the shadow further. For the first time, the crew felt a spark of hope, a tiny flame in the cold void. The shadow was massive, older than human memory, but it had never faced a mind so chaotic, so unpredictable. Humans were dangerous in ways it could not calculate, and every instinct in the Erebus screamed that they could exploit it. Soren's voice rang out, steady, commanding, "We push it now. Every move counts. Every decision must be different." The ship surged forward, weaving between stars and energy signatures, each path deliberately impossible to guess. The shadow lunged, but it miscalculated, hitting one of the decoys Mara had set, creating a wave of energy that rocked the void. For the first time, the shadow recoiled fully. Uncertain, almost cautious, Soren allowed himself a small grin, knowing they had shown it something new, something dangerous. "Humans never repeat themselves," he said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. "And now it knows. It can't predict us." The crew's fear began to shift, morphing into adrenaline, their minds sharp, their bodies ready. Every human on the ship felt it, the first taste of fighting an impossible foe and realizing they might survive. But the shadow was still there, still enormous, still ancient, still waiting. It had learned a lesson it could not forget, and the humans had awakened its curiosity and its caution. Soren knew this was only the beginning, but for the first time, he felt the thrill of the challenge. Humans never repeated themselves, and now, the void itself would learn what that meant. The void had never felt so alive. The shadow had changed, its movements sharper, faster, more deliberate. Cliffs and Soren watched the main screen, heart pounding, knowing they had awoken a force that did not forget. "It's learning too fast now," Mara whispered, eyes glued to the console. "It's adapting to our patterns, Captain." The crew felt the shift immediately, a cold pressure pressing against their minds. It was no longer just observing, they had made it aware, and now it was hunting. The Erebus shuddered as a wave of unseen energy brushed against the hull, rocking the ship. Crew members grabbed whatever they could hold, their faces pale, but their resolve hardened. Soren's mind raced, thinking of every possible strategy, every random move they could make. "Humans never repeat themselves," he muttered, "a mantra now, and we have more tricks than it knows." Mara initiated a sequence of decoy maneuvers, engines flaring in impossible patterns, lights and signals exploded in all directions, creating a maze of false data for the shadow to chase. But the shadow was relentless, moving faster than before, dodging some decoys, analyzing others. It struck the first real attack, sending a pulse of energy that shook the Erebus. Soren shouted orders, "Brace for impact, but keep moving. Do not let it predict our next step." The crew obeyed instinctively, weaving, dodging, twisting through the darkness. Every move was different, every reaction spontaneous, and for now, it worked. Yet the shadow was learning, faster than they could anticipate. Its shape shifted in ways that defied human logic, adapting its strikes, countering their maneuvers. The crew realized that survival was no longer just about avoiding harm, it was about creating chaos. The shadow could not calculate. Soren leaned over the console, feeling a thrill mixed with fear. "It wants to understand us, but humans are impossible." Then came the moment of truth. A sudden lurch as the shadow slammed against the section of the hull. Warning lights flashed, the ship quivered, but the crew held their ground, hearts racing, minds sharp. Mara's fingers danced across the controls, sending bursts of energy in random directions. The shadow hesitated, recoiling slightly, showing the first real sign of uncertainty in millennia. Soren grinned, voice calm but fierce. "It's learning that humans never repeat themselves, and that's a lesson it cannot forget." The Erebus twisted through the void, engines blazing in chaotic bursts, a dance of unpredictability. Every human instinct, every history of survival, every unexpected decision was their shield. The shadow struck again, but each time it miscalculated, confused by human ingenuity. The crew began to feel a strange exhilaration amidst the terror. They were facing something older than time itself, and yet they were holding their ground. Every twist, every flare, every sudden maneuver proved that unpredictability was their greatest weapon. The shadow had power, but humans had creativity, courage, and chaos on their side. And humans never repeated themselves, a truth that no ancient intelligence could fully comprehend. Soren knew this battle was far from over, but the first cracks were showing. The shadow was cautious now, hesitant, learning the hard way that humans were not a simple prey. The crew tightened their grips, minds sharp, hearts racing, and in that moment, they realized the void had never seen anything like them. The Erebus surged forward, engines roaring, lights flickering, and the shadow paused, hovering in the darkness, uncertain, curious, and more dangerous than ever. The Erebus drifted through the darkness, engines glowing like tiny suns. The shadow loomed ahead, massive, alien, its form twisting as if trying to comprehend every move the humans made. Captain Soren's eyes were sharp, mind racing, heart steady, despite the pounding adrenaline. "We're not just surviving anymore," he said quietly. "We're making it learn what humans can do." Mara's fingers flew across the controls, rerouting power to engines, weapons, and sensors in unpredictable bursts. The crew had developed a rhythm, but not a pattern. Every action spontaneous, every reaction new. They launched a series of decoy pulses, scattering energy signatures like stars in the void. The shadow struck, smashing one decoy, but missing the real ship. And the crew felt a flicker of triumph. Soren smiled grimly. "It's fast, but it's still learning. And humans never repeat themselves." Lieutenant Yallen monitored the hull, watching cracks appear and disappear as the ship moved with impossible agility. Each time the shadow attacked, it miscalculated. Slowed by human unpredictability, every strike was different, every escape unique, and the shadow struggled to adapt. Then came a daring move, Soren's boldest yet, a maneuver no human or alien could have predicted. The Erebus dived suddenly toward a cluster of distant asteroids, weaving between them like a phantom. The shadow followed, but its enormous form could not move as easily. It collided with debris, massive pieces clanging and exploding into the void. The crew held their breath as alarms rang, lights flickered, and the ship shuddered. But the humans had already anticipated the chaos, slipping through spaces too small for the shadow to follow. Mara cheered softly. "It can't catch us. It can't catch us if we stay unpredictable." Soren nodded, eyes narrowing. "It's learning, but it's still behind. Just like every species we've faced." The shadow recoiled, massive tendrils of energy radiating from it like warning signals. It had immense power, intelligence, and speed. But humans had imagination, courage, and randomness on their side. Soren barked orders, and the crew moved like a single mind. Yet every action was unique, impossible to predict. Energy pulses, engine flares, false signals all combined into a symphony of chaos the shadow could not control. For the first time, the Erebus crew saw it hesitate, a subtle pause that was victory in itself. They pressed the advantage, twisting through the void. Every decision unpredictable, every move a challenge. The shadow lashed out, but miscalculated again, smashing into a decoy that had no real effect. Soren felt a thrill mixed with fear. Human ingenuity had won them the first real advantage in the battle. The crew began to feel hope, a dangerous and thrilling sensation. They had faced impossible odds, an entity older than time itself, and still they were alive. Every human instinct, every unpredictable decision, every chaotic maneuver proved that survival was not just skill, it was imagination. And imagination, chaos, and courage were things no ancient intelligence could fully calculate. Soren grinned, voice calm but fierce. "They're learning we cannot be predicted, and that's our edge." Mara laughed softly, fingers dancing over it. "The console, they can't catch us if we keep changing everything." The shadow paused in the void, massive and silent, studying them, and the humans realized, for the first time, that the battle might not just be about survival, it might be about proving something no being had ever known. The Erebus surged forward, engines blazing, moving through the darkness with confidence, and the shadow hovered, massive and uncertain, for the first time facing a force it could not control. The Erebus drifted closer to the heart of the void, engines glowing like fireflies against the infinite darkness. The shadow loomed ahead, massive, twisting, and angry, its energy rippling like waves across space. Captain Soren gripped the console, eyes sharp, mind racing faster than any sensor could process. "This is it," he said quietly. "One final move, one human move it cannot predict." Mara nodded, her fingers dancing over the controls, rerouting power to every system in a chaotic sequence. The crew felt a thrill run through them, hearts pounding, knowing the final test was here. The shadow lunged, massive and deliberate, but humans had learned its patterns, however small. Every decoy, every engine flare, every pulse of energy was different, impossible to predict. Soren took a deep breath, knowing the trick would be dangerous. "Engage sequence Delta Zero," he commanded, voice calm but decisive. The ship twisted, flipped, and surged forward, in a motion so chaotic it looked like destruction, energy pulses scattered in every direction. Fake signals and real maneuvers intertwined in a chaotic dance. The shadow reacted instantly, striking at the wrong place, smashing through decoys. It roared silently in the void, immense and furious, but human unpredictability had given them the edge. Mara laughed softly, voice trembling with relief and excitement. "You can't calculate us, Captain. We're too chaotic." Soren smiled, eyes narrowed. "Humans never repeat themselves. And that's why we survive." Then came the final move, bold and brilliant, a sequence no alien mind could predict. The Erebus fired a pulse of energy directly into the void, but not to harm the pulse, created a pattern of